It's the World Darts Championship, everybody's favourite Christmas sport, at Ali Pali, starting on the 15th of December and ending on the 3rd of January. And this is the massive Odds Now betting preview. Insight from two of the best brains in darts with me today. I've got Matt Hill from Odds Now and Connor Cain, who looks after our sister channel, Darts Now. Plenty of laughs and insight in the next hour or so, and we're going to flag some of the best bets as well whilst we are at it. Right, no messing then, boys. With the opening question, in one or two sentences, what and why are you looking forward to this year's World Darts Championship? We'll start with you, Matt.
Well, I'm always looking forward to it, Anna, to be honest. But this one in particular, I think a very different dynamic from what we've had in recent years. One look at the outright betting will show you that. So many years now we've had Michael van Gerwen Price, all these familiar names, and even some of the sort of mid-range players massively drifted in the market, a real changing of the guard almost. And I think some of these players would probably begrudge you saying that has happened. They'll still fancy their chances, but the market doesn't lie. We are looking at a little bit of a two-horse race according to the betting with Humphries and Littler, who are, of course, in the same half. Gary Anderson, probably the only one bucking the trend with a bit of a resurgence, but the likes of MVG, the likes of Gerwin Price, the likes of Michael Smith taking a walk in the market. So it feels completely different to the last few years for me, and that makes it exciting.
Tell you what, Adam, that's a bleeding long sentence, isn't it?
Yeah.
But just to echo what he said, changing of the guard, Michael van Gerwen is coming in as almost a bit of an outsider because of the two Lukes, and it's the first time in probably 13 years that he's coming in a little bit under the radar. So, yeah, it's we could be entering a new era.
So, as we can see with the odds, guys, and most tournaments recently have been dominated by the two Lukes, Luke Littler and Luke Humphries, the finalists from last year. We're going to be talking about them in depth as we go. But the question at this stage, who do you think would be the third most likely person to win the World Championship at this stage?
Oh, that's a good question. The market would tell you it's one of Gary Anderson or Michael van Gerwen, but as we come on to in quarter four, I can see reasons for them, but I can also see reasons against them. And I think you have to say that the reason that there's such a gap between the top two and the rest is you can find chinks in everyone's armour lower down this market. And it's more, who do you make a case for? I think, we're probably going to come on to it, no doubt, but you only have to look at the money behind someone like Vessel Nyman, who's absolutely collapsed in price. And that's because people are trying to work out, all these players have a bit of a weakness. Who's got a good route? Who might sneak in under the radar? I mean, Connor talked about MVG going in under the radar. So, yeah, I think it's very difficult to say who has the third best chance. I think it's a big cluster of players, but out of the two, without giving too much away, I think Gary Anderson's in better form than Michael van Gerwen, and I think he'll really fancy his chances in the bottom half. But my reservations about Gary are more about stamina and can he last the course, really. But on bare form, Anderson.
Yeah, I mean, Anderson is in the better form to Michael van Gerwen, but I feel like he's always got that one dodgy game in him. We saw it last year against Brendan Dolan. That's a real strange game because he wasn't playing well against Brendan, went off stage, took his starts case with him, and then there was a big delay of him coming back on stage. I don't know what was going on there, but Michael van Gerwen, listen, he's been poor this year in TV ranking events, barring the World Match Play, but he doesn't play badly at the World Championship. Even when he comes into the World Championship in indifferent form, he doesn't play badly at the World Championship. When you've looked at the past few years, it's only... I mean, last year was a bit of a shot to Scott Williams where he did sort of underperform, but other than that, if it's not been COVID, it's been a sensational performance to dump him out. Michael van Gerwen raises his game at the World Championship. It's a different tournament to any other tournament. Players who have played well all year suffer at the Worlds. We've seen it because of the pressure that is on people's shoulders. It can make or break careers. Michael van Gerwen knows how to deal with that. He's done it 3 times to lift this trophy. So behind the two Lukes, I think he's the most equipped, even with the form of someone like an Anderson.
Well, after the final last year, the day after the final, Luke Humphries and Luke Littler would have been the top two in the betting. They have been all year. They will be going into the tournament. There's no real surprise that the big names Van Gerwen and Anderson are third and fourth in the market. But 11 months ago, if you'd have said to me the fifth and sixth in the market would be called Wessel Neiman and Mike De Decker, you'd have been pretty surprised. Matt asked me the question the other day, and it kind of relates to me more. Who would you be having a bet on now if you were starting your book right now? Matt's someone who would bet on the World Championship throughout the year as form becomes clear, and sometimes the bookmakers are slow to react. I think that's a perfectly fine strategy to take. I've not actually had a bet on the World Championship, and I will be doing, probably after this podcast today. We're going to come on to who I would bet. I don't want to give it away too early, so we're going to go into quarter one now. Big names galore in quarter one. Then, as always, the reigning champion, the world number one, Luke Humphries, is in there. He's at 5-6. Dedeker, Bunting, Van Dyvenbode, Peter Wright, a former winner, Hetta Wade, Barneveld, a former winner, Scutt, who we're going to come on to, Watamina, who's done well this year. Big names galore. It's a theme throughout darts, as we often say. The depth in quality is there, but only one place to start really in quarter one, and that would be with Humphries, who is 5-6 to win this quarter and 100-30 to win the competition outright and retain his title.
Yeah, I'll go in really hard at the start here. I still think Luke Humphries is a good bet to win the World Championship for anybody who is starting that book from scratch. 100-30. I think there's one sports book that's 18-5, but it depends how much and if you can get on, I suppose. But yeah, 7-2, 100-30 is available. He's a best price 5-6 to come through this quarter. And there are some dangerous players lurking in the deeper rounds if you have a good look at this. And some of the names you list there, really informed players and players with good pedigree. But I do think he's worthy of that price. I think there might even be a little bit of juice in that price, and it's simply because of the makeup of the quarter. The first thing that I'm doing when I'm assessing somebody's outright chances is looking at their chances of getting past Christmas, because that's the banana skin for quality players, isn't it? Round 1 and 2, best of 5 sets, short format. You've got one game. Or every time you see a seed get through in round 2, they always say, just relieved to get through, just relieved to be here. Doesn't matter how you perform, just get through. MVG says it every year. So I'm looking at them round 2 games and thinking, can your opponent really threaten you there? Now, Humphries is going to play one of Joe Comito or Thibaut Tricole. I like Tricole, but I don't think he's a real threat to Luke on the World Championship stage, unless he brings his very best and unless Luke has a bad day. I think Luke's going to be 1-10, maybe shorter, to win that round 2 game. So I actually think he's got the most chance of anybody of still being there after Christmas. I think everyone has varying chances of slipping up, and I think Humphries is the safest to get into that longer extending format. Then you look at his game in the next round 3, probably against Barney. Again, the perks of being ranked number 1. I think you'd take that, wouldn't you? But Barneveld is a legend of the sport. He has good days occasionally, but can I see him beating Humphries over a best of 7 sets? Not unless Luke's way off it. So I've already kind of in my head got Luke in round 4 before he has to play anybody of real note. So I think if you do believe that and agree with me that he's going to get to round 4, is he going to be 5-6 against anyone he plays? So there's potentially juice still in that price. I've backed Humphries for visibility all year. I've been chipping away at Luke Humphries at various prices. 9-2, 5-1, still been having a bit of 7-2. He did go really short at one point. I think he was into 5-2, 2-1 at one point, which we thought was the right price at the time. He's now drifted back out because of Mr. Littler's exploits in the last couple of months. But yeah, I've seen nothing. Some people talk about his form. Has he been a bit off in the last couple of months? He probably has, but I think these best players, like you said about MVG, they know when to raise the game. Yeah. Humphries will kick into gear at the World Championship. I have no doubt of that. And he'll like all the talk about Littler. He's a defending champion. He's been there and done it. No one really puts too much talk about Humphries, do they? There's going to be buzz every time Littler plays. I think Humphries will just quietly go about his business. He's still going to be there at the business end. And he's a tough man to beat. I think 7-2, that's still a very good price for arguably the best player in the world.
Yeah, I would agree to that. I think to get over 3-1 for Luke Humphries, listen, he's still won the most majors this year. I know he's not won the most titles, but I still think he's the best player in the world. I don't think his A game is as good as Luke Littler, but there's a difference between playing your best and winning and getting over that line.
Well, how often do players actually hit their A plus game? Yeah, very rare.
You've nailed it on the head, Dan. Yeah. I think perfect example was the recent Players' Championship finals. Luke Humphries will admit has admitted himself that Luke Littler was the best player in that tournament. But when it came to it, when it came between Luke Humphries and Luke Littler in those big moments, who was better? The experience of Humphries came through. We're looking at this quarter. You say there's a little bit of value there in the 5-6. I think there is, to be honest, because a lot of people make a lot of fuss about the short format in the opening stage of the Worlds. It's a short format compared to the World Championship. It's not a short format. You've got to win 9 legs. That is a long format compared to the vast majority of tournaments. And you mentioned there, Joakim Mito or Thibaut Tricol. Listen, Tricol had a good win in Minehead. He beat Gerwin Price, but are any of those really good at trouble Luke Humphries? No. Is Barney good at trouble Luke Humphries? Listen, Barney can play well, and he played very well last year when he lost to Luke Littler. But if Barney takes the lead, is he going to be able to keep his composure when he's got Luke breathing down his neck? I don't think he can do that. And then you look a little bit further down, you're likely to be either James Wade or Peter Wright.
Again,
You know, are any of those going to pose some serious
I would say
threat?
favourable.
So, yeah, that 5 to 6. You don't normally say 5 to 6 is value, and I know that you guys have done a video on odds now of why backing the favourite is not necessarily good value. But I echo what Matt said. I think here at 5 to 6 to win the quarter, there might be a little bit of value in that. And at, what was it, 100 to 30 to win the tournament? I mean, he's 100 to 30 to win the tournament because he's in the same half as Luke Littler, let's be honest. But he's in a good quarter. It's probably, without looking too far ahead, it is probably going to come down to a Luke Littler Humphries for a spot in the final.
But as well, Connor, you're dealing with it, aren't you? You've either got Littler 2-1 or Humphries at 100 to 30, and I don't think there's that much difference between the two.
We've been saying that.
And
for
I think
a while.
Humphries, like you say, he keeps getting the better of him in big games as well, doesn't he? Like real finals when they meet, he just seems to find it. But he raised his game by about 8 or 9 points, as you say, at the Players Championship finals.
I mean, if you think that is a 50-50 match, and I think most people would probably say it is, then you go with who had the largest odds.
Yeah, if it was the other way around, I'd possibly be backing Littler here, but it's not, and price is king, I think we probably should reference the other big names in the draw because there are some, but the reason I say that 5 to 6 maybe value on Luke Humphries is because I expect him to get to round 4, and he's only going to have to face one of these big dangers, like Heta, Bunting, De Decker, all fantastic players, all had really good years, but only one of them can make it to round 4. They've all got to kind of play each other. Stephen Bunting's shorter in the market because Heta and De Decker are going to play each other. So if you're Heta or De Decker, you've got to get through the other one, potentially. Then you've got to get through Bunting, potentially. Then you've got to get through Humphries just to get to the quarterfinal. I mean, it's a horrid draw for all three of them. Again, to be clear, you talk about me backing through the year. I'm on Mike De Decker at 200 to 1. I think he's got a fantastic chance, but I think he's in the worst possible part of the draw he could have been.
You mentioned those names there. I mean, Dirk van Dijvenbode, he made the semi-final in Minehead. He should have beaten Luke Humphries and made the final as well. He's back to playing somewhere near his very, very best after a horrid shoulder injury. The injury's not gone, but he's a real danger.
I know someone fancies Dirk.
I will make the first punchy statement of the podcast then, because Dirk van Dijvenbode for me is the most overpriced player in this field as far as I'm concerned. I've looked through the whole field, obviously. Much of my comment and analysis of what we'll particularly me, but what we'll touch on as we go are players out of form on the slide, possibly with a ungenuine ranking. Peter Wright's in this section for starters. You've got the likes of Gerwin Price, Michael Smith, Johnny Clayton to an extent, and others that are going in the wrong direction. Dirk has had his injury. He's back on the up for me. And you couldn't say that about too many players, particularly priced in his range. 23 was a write-off. Much of the first half of 24 was as well, because he had that injury. But that looks now to be fixed. He looked very much back to me. Semi-finalist at the Players' Championship, as you said, Connor, in a game where he probably should have beaten Humphries. Slight tangent, but we talk about the Humphries and Littler Players' Championship final. For me, going into that game, Littler was the favourite, and rightly so, because he had shown, even on that day, but on that weekend, how much better form he was in. He was 6, 7, 8 points averaging above Humphries, and Humphries to me didn't look quite right to me, to be honest, in the Players' Championship. But as you rightly say, when he got to the final, he got the job done, raised his game, fair play. But back to Dirk, I just think he's someone who's coming back to form. I cannot get over how big his price is. He's 180 on the exchange. Now, I know that sounds like a cliche on this particular broadcast, but he's 180 on the exchange. I think it's just way, way too big. Of course, there's going to have tough games. There's tough games every turn of your every corner you turn in the world of darts at the moment. But with that happens at the Players' Championship, banging in the 180s, he could lose his head. He could lose his head in any game, but that's the risk you take. But his shoulder looks all right to me from what we've seen most recently.
Great guy to talk to as well.
Yeah, really always engaging in the interviews over on our sister channel at Darts Now. But look, he's in a competitive quarter. But I think he can definitely cause some trouble. And the bottom half of this quarter, if you like, is the most competitive. We are going to be catching up with Stephen Bunting, and he's going to be telling you about his practicing with Luke Littler and Luke Humphries ahead of this World Championship market.
A few weeks, obviously, before the Worlds, I've got a few days. I need to book in with Luke Humphries, maybe do a little bit of practice with Luke Littler as well, and get myself 100% ready for that first game at Ali Pali. Suits is a really good friend of mine. Really good player on his day. He won a Pro Tour as well last season. So, yeah, he'd be going in full of confidence. And Kai Gotthard, I watched him a few times. He's a very good player as well. So the difficult part for me is not knowing who I'm going to play. So I can't really prepare for any special player. I've just got to prepare my own way, make sure that my game's A+. And, I'm sure my A+ game will win that tie, but I need to make sure I'm 100% focused, committed, and ready for that tie. But like I say, they are two difficult opponents, and I need to make sure I'm ready.
Also in this bottom section as well is Connor Scott, who we're going to be hearing a lot about because he is going to be sponsored by Darts Now, and he's going to be wearing a Darts Now logo at Ali Pali. He's got Ben Robb in the first round, qualified from New Zealand, who's been over once or twice before.
4 times.
Is this Big Rig? Is that this him?
Rig,
yes.
Yeah.
Connor Scott, he'll be odds-on favourite to come through that first round, and he'll be playing Damon Heta if and when he does so.
He will. And I don't know if you want me to do my match bets for this quarter, but Connor Scott is one of them, so I might as well slip it in now. Yeah, I'm going to back Connor to win this game 3-0, and that's no disrespect to Ben Robb, but I just feel like he's quite, in horse racing, we might say he's exposed. We've seen him 4 times now at the Ali Pali. He's averaged 89, 89, 87, 88. So we know what we're going to get from Ben Robb. He's going to come and average high 80s. I really like what I saw from Connor, and this is not just because we're sponsoring him, but at the Players' Championship finals, obviously, run to the quarterfinal, played the aforementioned Dirk van Duijvenbode, lost 10-9 in a deciding leg. Could have easily been him in the semis playing Luke Humphries. I just think he's a player that's developing at a rapid rate. Really enjoyed speaking to Connor, as we're probably going to slide into this video as well at some point as well. But yeah, I think he's acquiring that big stage experience. He's been to the Worlds once before. He played Christoph Kachuk in round 1, a very capable player, beat him 3-0. I see similar here. 6-4, Connor Scott is to win this 3-0. He's 1-5 to win the match. I think the 6-4s, I'd have it closer to evens that he wins this without dropping a set.
And Matt caught up with Connor earlier this week to look ahead to the World Championship.
I don't think any of us are happy with the draw, to be honest. I think Damon's right and it should be redone. No, it's one of those things. I'm learning these lessons rather quickly. Like I had Richie in my group at the Grand Slam, and obviously Richie's a good friend. I played Martin recently at the Players' Championships, who's a good friend and a practice partner. And obviously I'm going to be playing, potentially Damo at the Worlds, who's also a practice partner and a good friend on tour. And it's like, I've got to learn the lessons of being able to play people I'm close with, and it's all sort of coming thick and fast at the minute.
Just while we're on this section as well, we should probably mention, who we haven't done so far, Jermaine Wattimena and Wesley Plaisier. Massive threats. Both from Holland, of course, could play and probably should play Wade and Peter Wright respectively in their second round games. Plenty to look forward to there, Connor.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll jump in here because I've got a bet of. Wesley Plaisier, by the way, I just want to say what a fantastic year he's had. I think he's made 3 finals. He's won a Pro Tour title without having a tour card. By the way, he's going to have one next year.
Come on, Connor, tell us why he gets beat then.
However, I think
cheers, Matt. I totally see where you're going here.
I nearly swore at him then, but we don't want more editing. Listen, you expect him to come through that, and you expect him to set up a tie with Peter Wright, who you probably would expect him to come through that as well. But sorry about the pronunciation. Rusey as the motto.
Good effort.
Not bad, not bad.
Yeah.
If you look at his averages on the Asian tour, he's more than capable of putting in those high 80 averages, early 90s averages. Now, on that World Championship stage, every time an Asian player comes over, there's just something about that.
Raise the game.
Yeah, they do. And we saw it last year with Manlock Lung, Hugo, as he likes to be called. I think he broke... Was that funny?
Yes, I liked it because it's got a reference.
Oh, see, right. I thought you laughed.
No branding in this video, obviously.
No, they haven't paid us. But I think he broke the record against Jan van Veen for the most 180s in a best of 5 set match. He was fantastic, and just quite a funny side note, we spoke to him afterwards. And he couldn't speak English, so he had a translator with him. She spoke less English than what he did.
Oh, excellent.
So he was translating for the translator.
Oh, yeah, it was hilarious. But, a few years ago, we saw what Seigo Asada did. These Asian players, when they come over, Paul Lim, how many times has he done it? Beat Luke Humphries a few years ago. And Wesley Placea, if he feels that pressure on that stage, he could easily chuck in a high 80s, 90 average. We know that Azumoto can do that. We've seen that. Should Azumoto be 5-1 to beat Placea? I don't think he should.
Connor, as you'll see later in the video, I've got almost the exact same argument with another Asian player in another game at a similar price. So I think, generally speaking, the Asian players are underrated in these markets. The gap between the Asian Tour and the PDC Tour is narrowing every year, and we've seen these players can lift their game, and particularly in the scoring phase as well. There's fantastic scorers, these lads.
Just on the Asian players, how many Asian players have a perfect technique? It's just unbelievable. You never see a bad technique really from an Asian player. It really is just bam, bam, as simple as that. Even in the women's game, Mikuru Suzuki, it's just fantastic, isn't it? Lawrence Lagan, we know Wayne Mardle loves the Lagan.
My favourite.
Honestly, in the next 10, 20 years, we could have an Asian world champion.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. Just before we move on from this quarter, 2 more match bets. This is quite a busy quarter for me, as you can see. No outright bets on the quarter, although I would lean towards Humphries if I wasn't already heavily involved. But yeah, the 2 other bets I want to flag in this quarter in terms of match betting. Kai Gotthard takes on Alan Suter. He's 4-1 to hit the most 180s in this game against Suter. I think that's way too big. It's 5-2 in a lot of places. 4-1 with Hills and 888. Gotthard, he's an inconsistent type, but he has shown a liking for pressure and the big stage. He's come through the German Super League to get here, which is a very tough entry. Some really good recognisable names in there. Won the final 8-7. Again, had to hold himself together. He's won a Modus Super Series title this year. Again, had to hold himself together. He had one sole outing on the Euro Tour this year. He lost 6-2 to Brendan Dolan. But in that game, he averaged 98 and he won the 180 count 5-0. So, for him to be 4-1 to out maximum Alan Suter is just wrong. I think Suter's had a very up and down year by his own admission. He won a Pro Tour earlier in the year, but there's been a lot of times he's been way below his best. He didn't even qualify for the Worlds last year, which is a shock because we associate him with being
the year before.
Really good on that Ali Pali stage. He's had some great wins on there, but he has been up and down this year, and if he has a down day, I think Gotthard, even if he can't quite get over the line, he can certainly bang a few maximums in like he did against Dolan a few months ago. That 4-1 is just wrong. So that's one for me. And the final one I want to flag in this section, it's a bit of a fun one. I always like trying to do this with
I like this one. It's good.
This particular player, Madars Razma. I'm going to back him to beat Christian Kist, but I'm going to have Kist to hit the most 180s. And you could probably see the logic there. Razma, he's been well backed in the match betting for this one with good reason. They opened up quite a little bit of a pick'em, and Razma's now quite a solid favourite, which I would have about right because Kist, I actually backed him to beat Luke Littler in round 1 last year. Would you believe? That went well. And
we brought him back on the show as well.
Well, I like to hold my hands up to these things. I actually probably enjoy losing more than I do.
We've had a rebrand since then.
No, but in all seriousness, Kist, a very capable player, but I think my main observation of him in the last 2 years is he's had these patches where he's been fantastic, but then in between he's been pretty mediocre.
He's had his injury issues.
He has. And I think he's in one of those mediocre patches at the moment. I think Razma has been a little bit sneaky good form actually over the last 4 months or so. So I think he'll have too much for Kist, but Kist is actually 1-2 to win the 180 line here because Razma is an absolute staunch treble 19 hitter, as we all know. So I think, that little quirk, not very often you'd say the player that gets the most 180s will lose the match. I think it's very, very viable here. That's 2-1. I'd give that much better than a 2-1 chance of landing Razma to win, but Kist to outperform him on the 180 line.
Yeah, and just before we wrap up that first quarter, I have gone with an outright there, and it's quite a big one. It's Damon Heta at 20-1 with Paddy Power, the title sponsor. The reason why I've gone with that is because I think Damon's Heta potential, his ceiling is very, very high, and he's not quite brought it out on the stage this year. He did reach the semi-final of the UK Open, beat Luke Littler in one of the best games that you will see this year. But he's got Mike De Decker. He will likely have Mike De Decker if he beats Scott or Rob, who Scott, he could win the World Championship. But experience counts for a lot on this stage.
It does.
And if Mike De Decker comes through his second round game, he'll beat. Now, they met at the World Grand Prix. Damon Heta, who has a horrific record at the World Grand Prix, had 2 match starts to beat in there, and then Bunting or Dirk van Dijvenbode Probably. Can Damon Head to beat any of those? Well, I think he can. I think sort of the biggest task is going to be Luke Humphries. Now, I'm not saying Damon Head is going to win the quarter, but should he really
The price
be
is too big.
Yeah,
That's fair enough. If I was going to back one outside, I'd probably agree with you, to be honest. But I've left this quarter alone. But I think you're right in what you're saying. I think Heta, there's going to be 1 year where it clicks for him here, and he's going to go really, really deep. And when it's going to be one of those after timing when you think, God, that was a big price.
I asked myself the question.
It's been a long time coming, lads.
He has.
We like him, but it's been a long time coming.
He's got to go and do it now, and he has.
Yeah.
He's got to go do it now.
Yeah, and like you said, I think he will. He's 20-1. I asked myself the question, is he going to win this quarter more than 1 in 20 times? I think he does.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, well, of that bottom section, Bunting, Dirk, Damon, and Mike Didecker, plus Connor Scott, you wouldn't be surprised if either one of those 5 made the quarter final, and with Van Dyvenbode and Connor.
It is really
with
open.
Heta. Right, on to quarter 2 then, and this is pretty much all about one man. Luke Littler is your 8-11 favourite to be coming through this quarter and making the semi-final, probably where his nemesis Luke Humphries awaits. But we've also got the likes of Van Veen and Cross and Aspinall and Searle, who's been out of form, etc. And the potential first game for Littler in the second round could be Sky Sports' wet dream, Fallon Sherrock versus Luke Littler.
Well, do we bleep that one?
I think we'll get away with it.
Yeah,
It's true, because it's true, man.
My question is, are they going to get that game that they want? Will Fallon beat Ryan Meikle in round 1?
Maybe. With Fallon Sherrock, you really don't know. Her ceiling is extraordinary, but she can also chuck in a real stinker. She has experience on that stage. We know that. Ryan Meikle, he's coming off a big win against Anderson at the Players' Championship finals, but I think
does have a lot of off days, doesn't he, Meikle?
He does have a lot of off, and I think when I looked, I think Meikle was about 1-3 to win this match.
Short.
I think that's too short. I think especially with the experience that Sherrock's got, and Sherrock's playing regular darts. We've seen it. She plays a lot on the Moda Super Series, so it's not like she's coming into this cold or anything like that. We know the crowd is going to be right behind her. I would love to see Luke Littler and Fallon Sherrock to see where the crowd goes. Can Sherrock beat Meikle? I think it's close to a 50-50 game. I certainly don't agree with the odds putting Meikle as a huge favourite because experience counts for a lot. If they were playing behind closed doors, Meikle, but on that stage, different ballgame.
I think in this quarter, we've got the most dangerous unseeded players in this quarter of any quarter. There's dangers all over, but they are packed together in here. Ryan Joyce for a start, Scott Williams, semi-finalist last year, Springer, who I'm sure Matt will mention, Menzies and Lukeman made a Grand Slam final recently. They are all unseeded in this quarter of the draw. Really away from Littler, to be fair, pretty wide open, given that the next man in the betting is 9-1 behind Luke Littler. What did you make of it, Matt?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. I'll touch on Nico Springer because you've mentioned him. While he's fresh in the mind, I was really hoping he would get a kind of draw than this. I don't think he could have had a worse draw, to be honest. Scott Williams and then Rob Cross. It's really, really tough for an unseeded player, but he's got the talent. He has got the talent. Maybe he hasn't always shown it on his Euro Tour outings, but just for anyone that's not aware of this guy, young kid out of Germany, maybe arguably the best talent they've produced, in my opinion. Still very, very early in his career. And he's opted a couple of times now not to go to Q school when he's definitely good enough to have a card to focus on his education. Well, he's going to be on the tour next year because of his exploits on the secondary tours. He's already earned his place and he said he's committing to the tour. So excited to see what he could do this year. Can he beat Scott Williams? Yes. Do I want to back him? Probably not. I think Scott Williams just come back to form at the right time. So, yeah, as Connor pointed out, a Scottish flag next to Scott Williams on our graphics. Mostly because he's called Scott. But he won't be very happy with that one, will he, Scott? But, Scott had a fantastic run.
Probably like it, to be honest.
Yeah, had a fantastic run to the semi-finals last year. So it'd be wrong to write him off. And he'll play, I think he'd probably right in saying his best mate in darts, Rob Cross, in the second round.
Practice partners.
Yeah, practice partners. There's a few examples of that this year in the draw. But, that's an interesting section. Look, this section, as you quite rightly say, it's all about Littler. And I would say he is a prodigious talent, maybe the best we've ever seen, but at the prices, which is what this channel is about, he's worth taking on. If he's still standing come the quarterfinals, I am terrified of taking on Luke Littler. I'll openly say it. I want him gone early from my Humphries bet. But there's enough, I think he's 8-11 to come through this quarter. Yeah. You say it's littered with dangers this quarter. his mindset, for one, is very different to last year. There's going to be a lot of media attention. I mean,
Pressure.
there was last year, but it was a positive media attention, wasn't it? It was like, look what this kid's doing. It's unbelievable. Now it's like everyone's turning up. The pressure is going to be packed when you're in there, Connor, and they're all going to be waiting to see what Littler does and expecting him to win.
Last year he wanted to win a game. Now he reaches the final and loses. It's a disappointment.
Exactly. It was a free shot last year, wasn't it, a little bit? Whereas now it's his opponents that have the free shot. Nobody's going to be coming into that game saying, other than Luke Humphries, saying, we think you can beat Luke Littler. It's all going to be about Littler this. And I think that's a very different mindset for him. Not to say he's not capable of it, because he's proven he is capable of so much mental strength. But this is going to be like nothing we've ever seen before, I think, in terms of media hype and interest on a national and international scale. I think he'd rather play Sherrick, honestly do, rather than Meikle. I think the pace of Meikle is an unsettler. I think the short format is an unsettler. And I think it really would be a free shot for me. I think he'll like the fanfare of playing Fallon Sherrick. And he knows he's a better player than Fallon Sherrick as well. So I think he'll really embrace that. I think Meikle's slow player. I know he's passed these tests with slow players before, but I just think it's a little bit awkward on that World Championship stage. He'll want to get into his rhythm, bang in a few 180s. I could see a bit of head shaking against Meikle with the slow play. And if Meikle plays like he did against Gary, there could be a challenge. But I agree with you, Connor. I think that game is very 50-50 between Sherrick and Meikle, and maybe a bet there, Fallon. But look at the tasks he's got beyond that as well. Probably Richie Edhouse in his next game, European champion. Yes, he gave him a good beating at Minehead, but Edhouse averaged 98, 99 against him. Yeah. So Edhouse is clearly going to turn up and play good stuff against him, isn't he? And I think some of the others that are waiting there as well, Nopper or Ryan Searle, Rob Cross or Van Veen, it's not an easy route for him at all. And I think the odds are just a little bit carried away by Littler hysteria. And I've got to have a bet in this section. And I think you guys feel the same here.
Well, I'm not having a bet in this section. We'll come on to it. But I think there's quite a few players in here that will be spellbound, if you like, by Luke Littler.
I agree.
Danny Noppert is not one of them, and he is a very, very solid player, Danny Noppert. But just on Littler, I know we've done a lot of talking about Littler on this channel and on all across the sporting world, really. And I'm pretty much going to fail to find superlatives to adequately cover him. But two things I would say. For everything that is said about him, his age doesn't actually come up that often now.
No.
Because we're used to it. Is unbelievable. Because we're just used to his excellence. He is 17 years old. Yeah. He will not be 18 until after this tournament has finished. Just think about that for a minute. Honestly, 17 years old, already a world finalist, favourite to win it this year. And the thing what I would say, the only way to describe him really from my perspective is he just plays the game differently to everyone else.
Yeah.
It might be easy to say, but it's true. I mean, it feels different. It looks different. The ease, the flow, the creativity with the finishing often, that we've not seen so much before. But the only thing I would compare it to is I would only ever watch snooker if Ronnie O'Sullivan's playing.
Yeah.
Now, I think there's a hell of a lot of people out there now, obviously not sat around this table, that will only watch darts if Luke Littler is playing. And I think that's the star that he is. I mean, without even asking you, I can guarantee that all three of us around this table have been asked about Littler by someone who has never talked to you or me about darts.
Newspapers will be doing articles. The headline of which will be, what time does Luke Littler play tonight? Because there's that many people going to be Googling it. He just transcends the sport, doesn't he? And he's brilliant. I feel like on these videos I'm always looking for a way to oppose him. But it's just if the price is too short, you've got to take them on. It doesn't mean I don't think Luke Littler's the best player ever. It just means he's too short in the context of who he's got to play, the hurdles he's got to overcome, that I think the world's is different to anywhere else. Yeah. And I think, like you say, we've only got one sample from him last year. Now,
I didn't have to play a lot.
This year is so different to last year, and you're right. That is a massive point that gets overlooked. Yes, he demolished Rob Cross in the semis. Yes, he was brilliant against Luke Humphries in the final. But prior to that, he's easing into the tournament. He had a kind-ish start.
Because seeds around him went out early.
His numbers were astronomical, yes. But was he ever put under real pressure by many? I mean, Barney gave him a little bit of a test, and he come through it, to be fair. But I think he's going to have more tests in the early stages this year.
Yeah, and I'll jump in here. I'll try and take it away from Luke Littler a little bit because, listen, I'm sure we all do, we expect Luke Littler to come through this because he doesn't have off. He's another one who doesn't have off games. Someone's really going to have to raise their game.
So how do you oppose him, in your opinion? Who's the person to oppose him with?
Well, like you said, we always go with value, and the value that I've gone here, Rob Cross for me, and I'm going to say this now, the history of darts, probably the most under the radar elite player there's ever been. And I think he's outright, he's like 40-1, the same with Ross Smith. I don't understand that. I know he's in the same section as Luke Littler, same quarter as Luke Littler, that's probably why. But Rob Cross is someone who consistently can average over a ton, especially in these big TV tournaments, in these long format games. Now, Luke Littler, listen, he smashed Rob Cross before, but Luke Littler is going to have to average 102, 3, 4 to do that, which he can do time and time again. Rob Cross isn't going to feel the pressure of playing Luke Littler. Rob Cross isn't going to feel the pressure of playing in this format on that stage for that trophy, for that amount of money. He's a cool operator. He's a heavy scorer, excellent on the outer ring. And if there's someone who can really take it to Luke Littler, it's Rob Cross. He's 10-1 with Ladbrokes to win this quarter. He's 10-1 because Luke Littler is in it. If Luke Littler falls, because he's in a different section of the quarter to Rob Cross, if Luke Littler falls before that, who stops Rob Cross? You've got question marks over Nathan Aspinall. Gian Van Veen, been fantastic, but still inconsistent. Andrew Gilding, he's not going to test Rob Cross, I don't think. Noppert, can he beat Rob Cross on this stage? I don't think he can. Searle, on this stage, can he? I don't think he can. Rob Cross is a serious threat and consistently overlooked.
Well, can I just say, I think we're right in saying that we have all three of us have put up Rob Cross to win this quarter 10-1. So make of that what you will. But yeah, I have chucked another one in there at double the price. I've actually took Searle as well at 20-1. Now he's had a bad year.
You'll have to explain this one because he's been crap this year.
He's had a bad year.
Don't mention words.
But disappointing in TV tournaments, I would say, but remains one of the most naturally talented players around, I would say, given he can't see how good he is. Now, he's had a bad year, yes, on the telly, but Pro Tour title, he's still doing great stuff on the European Tour. He's an extremely talented person. And I think this is every year for the last 4 or 5 years, I've heard people putting up Ryan Searle as a dark horse. Nobody's doing it that year. Do I think that'll play into him? Yes. The key reason for this bet is you talked about someone who's not going to get overwhelmed playing Luke Littler. Ryan Searle is one of those.
True.
I think he plays the board as well as anyone, as well as Littler. Now, what you can question about Ryan Searle is his ability to close pressure games out. We saw him spend, was it seven darts to win a European, to win a Euro Tour title.
Which cost him a Grand Slam spot as well.
It did as well, and that'll have hurt him. But he's been out of the spotlight since then. I think just under the radar. And I think if you fast forward and tell me that we're at Searle versus Littler, I think I'll be back in Searle at the prices that will go up, and I think he'll give him a really, really close game if he gets there. I think 20-1, it's all about price, as I say. I think 20-1 is more than worth a little try on Ryan Searle.
Well, Connor has taken every word out of my Rob Cross playbook, really, but I'm coming from a slightly different angle. Van Veen is a shorter price to win this quarter than Rob Cross. I think that is plain wrong. I think Van Veen is good, but he's not that good on what we've seen yet. Cross does what Cross does, as Connor has alluded to, consistently well throughout the season, generally speaking, somewhat under the radar, as Connor said, away from the big guns, but that's the way he likes it. So I would happily back Cross at 10-1 for this quarter, but I will be very clear, I'm doing this from a trading angle.
Yeah. He's not going to go up on that stage and average below 95. That's not going to happen.
So I think Cross, from a trading angle at 10-1, I think he will make the quarter final, and then at that time it'll be no bigger than 7-2, 4-1 to beat Littler. Then I'll be trading out, hoping for the best that he can beat Littler. And if Littler does fall before then, as Connor also alluded to, then I'm in a good position. So, yes, I'm backing Rob Cross purely from a trading angle. The other one I would mention from this quarter that we've not mentioned yet, Ryan Joyce.
Yes.
Away from those that have had a breakout year.
That just sums his career up, doesn't it? The one that we haven't mentioned yet, Ryan Joyce. Yeah.
Away from those that have had an official breakout year by winning something, Schindler, Ed House, De Decker, Ryan Joyce is the best of them that hasn't won anything, if you see what I mean. Just chipping away, getting better and better. Always looks like he's not bothered doing his hair, which is perfectly fine by me. Serial quarter-finalist, somewhat under the radar. He just strikes me as a player that could upset the odds against anyone in the World Championship that's not called Luke. Anyone in this World Championship that's not called Luke, he could beat and you wouldn't be surprised. he might be. He might well be the underdog against Noppert in round 2. He might well be the underdog in Ryan Searle in round 3. But that suits him. I just think he's a dangerous player. He's one of them that I think is and will be overruled by the likes of Littler if they meet. But yeah,
if you were giving someone who watches darts once a year some advice, like if you were putting a bet together on the night, just a little bit of a fun bet. Joyce, as an outsider against anyone, he'll give you a run for your money. He's really consistent. He's really consistent, really tough player to put away. And he's one of these unique players alongside maybe Wade and maybe a couple of others who is doubling is his biggest asset. And that is dangerous on this stage.
That's the northeast for you.
Yeah. Final one for me would be, again, with a possible trading angle. I've not actually committed to this one yet. I'm just looking as I'm looking now. Martin Lukeman has made a Grand Slam final. He's clearly in the best form of his life. He'll win round 1 against an Indian qualifier. He should be beating Gilding, who's not in great form. And then Aspinall, has he really recovered from his injury and his, psychological demons, if you like?
Yeah, we mentioned it in the Sky documentary. He's had issues with dartitis.
I've been saying that for a long time.
Yeah, well, we all have. And he's denied it.
Yeah. As Matt's been reminding me every time I mention it.
But yeah, in the documentary, which I'm in.
Yes.
22 minutes in episode 3.
Yeah.
He did admit it. Now that that's out there, people are going to be talking about it on that stage.
Yeah.
That could be more.
So Lukeman again from a trading angle, just because I think I wouldn't be surprised if you found Martin Lukeman's name in round 4. I wouldn't be surprised at all. I really wouldn't.
You've just reminded me. Just before we move on, I do have actually another first round bet.
Yeah.
And it's Martin Lukeman versus Nitin Kumar over 3.5 sets. Basically, it's 2-1 with Bet365, and basically what they're saying is 2-1 for Nitin Kumar to win 1 set.
Okay.
Nitin Kumar has averaged a ton on this stage before. I think it was against Brendan Dolan. He's averaging low 90s and even high 90s in the other various tours that he plays. Martin Lukeman, if he averages over 95, I feel like he's done well there. Martin Lukeman is dangerous, but he's not going to go out there and average a ton and blow Nitin Kumar away. 2-1 for Kumar to win 1 set. I really like that because Kumar played on that stage before, played well on that stage before, and played well away from the stage. So
to be honest,
I think he'll win a set.
When you're getting 2-1 on a player to win a set, I mean, on this stage, like you said, the added pressure that comes with it, you can almost make a case for me winning a set on that stage against
5 minutes work.
Well, exactly, and it only takes a bad time on the doubles, or there's going to be a set, at least 1 set, maybe 2, where Kumar throws first, and
I want 200-1 for you.
Needs to hold. Yeah, you probably would. Yeah, I probably still wouldn't back it, to be honest, but. I could see the logic. Yeah.
Right. Well, we're into the bottom half now, and this is where it gets interesting because the 2 Lukes are not in here. And quarter 3 is the most wide open of the 4 quarters, without any doubt. Michael Smith's 5-1, Chris Dobie 11-2, Neiman 6, Price is 6, Rock, Clayton all under 10-1. So yeah, the most open quarter by some distance. Where do you want to start on this one, Matt?
Well, I think you've started right. It's the place you want to be in this draw, isn't it? If you're a sort of a mid-range player looking for a run, there's 6 players priced at single figures as you reference, which is a good indicator of that. And plenty of them, if not all of them, will quietly fancy their chances of coming through this. I think you could suggest this is maybe where we see an almighty shock, like a name that none of us have considered coming through. And looking further down this quarter, where would that be? I don't know. Florian Hempel, 66 to win the quarter. Mickey Mansell, man of the moment, 100-1 to win this quarter. I don't see it like that myself. I think those 6 at the top are 6 quality operators. You can maybe put Darryl Gurney in there as well as a danger man. Yeah. But yeah, like I see, I'd be very surprised if one of those 6. I know this is pretty obvious stuff. I don't think it's going to be a colossal shock. I think one of these is going to grasp the opportunity and get some good momentum behind them. And to be honest, if one of these guys get to the semi-finals, nothing to say they can't go on and win it. They're all good enough. Where would I play it out of these 2? Well, you've touched on it with the prices there. You've got Michael Smith 5-1, Chris Dobie 11-2, Vessel Nyman 6-1. Now I'll give you some background here. Nyman's another one I'm on at massive prices. I think he's too short now in the outrights.
Well, as I said at the top of the show, he's the 5th person you come to on the odds check.
And don't get me wrong, that is because his draw is fantastic. I know Connor's put him up, and I totally see that. But I just worry about him now. And this is someone that's wanting him to win. Trust me, I want Wrestle Nyman to win this World Championship. I'll be off to the Bahamas. But in all seriousness, he's got a fantastic route. He has And that's why he's that price.
Yeah.
But when there's a lot more to factor in, isn't there? Experience. He's played on the Ali Pali stage once before. He let me down on a big 5-4 last year. I had him to beat Steve Beaton, and the Adonis does what the Adonis does. And,
Steve Beaton cannot be beaten.
He can't.
He won't be
He has been beaten. He's not here.
Yeah. But anyway, but that tells you where 12 months ago, Nyman went out round 1 to Steve Beaton. Now he's 5th favourite to win the Worlds. Yes, he's had a fantastic year. And yes.
You've got to tell us what happened in the Grand Slam.
Yes, at Grand Slam he averaged 105, 108 and 110 and didn't win a match.
He actually broke the record, which was then broke again by Jean Van. But he actually broke the record for the highest Grand Slam tournament average ever. Phil Taylor stood for over a decade.
And didn't get through the group.
Well, he didn't win a game.
Didn't win a game.
He broke the record for it.
That's what this
madness.
is. And that is, these markets are so data-driven these days. All the algorithms are weighing in, factoring in. If you do a last 2 months, last 3 months numbers, Nyman's going to come out at the top, isn't it? And that's why these data nerds are looking at it thinking, okay, this guy's value. I understand that. Michael Smith, I said to you a couple of weeks ago, he was at 50 on the exchange. Said he'll you can knock 10 points off that when people actually realise the draw he's got. I think that has happened now. I think he's 30 something on the exchange. So that was a back to lay there. It's the man in the middle that I think, and it's a familiar name for me. Everyone's probably thinking, oh, he's putting up Chris Dobey again. No. I just think at 11-2, out of that trio, he's the man that I hang my hat on as being the most reliable. Nyman's got things to prove on the World Championship stage. Michael Smith's been all over the place in the last 6 months. Yeah. Dobey is struggling a little bit for TV form, but his World Championship record is really good. Yeah. He's really consistent. And he made, I think it was a 3rd straight quarterfinal last year. Let's not talk about that quarterfinal. Probably the worst day of my betting life. It's right up there.
Cross.
4-1 up against Rob Cross.
Lost 5-4.
And I lost 5-4.
4-0 up.
Yeah, I lost 5-4.
Did you say that? Sorry.
It's all right. I don't know what I said.
He said 4-1.
I was emotionally scarred.
Yeah, he was. He was
still
a broken.
I don't want to talk about it really, but I have to because I'm putting him up to win this quarter. But yeah, I just think the 11-2. I can hang my hat on Dobey. I think the Worlds really suits him. The way he plays, he's a very consistent rhythmical player, good scorer, good finisher. He's just got a rounded game. I wouldn't say there's one element of his game that stands out above the rest. I noticed when he went out of the PC finals, he tweeted that I just can't play on TV at the moment. I hope he can get himself out of that mindset because he can, and he can certainly play here. And I think if he's anywhere near 80% of his best, then this quarter is a massive opportunity for him, and hopefully that's been enough to make him sort of dust himself down and really take advantage of this opportunity. The other man I want to be with in this quarter is Johnny Clayton. And I really, really fancy Johnny Clayton. If you're, I'm saying this now, if you're looking to trade on this market, just as you said about Dirk van Duijvenbode, I would back Johnny Clayton at the current price. He's a huge 3-figure price. Like Dirk on the exchange, there's some 100-1 available at sportsbooks outright, and he's 9-1 to win this quarter. I think his form has been really, really encouraging in the last couple of months. Hasn't always got the results to back that up, but go and watch his recent games. He is playing close. I'm close to prime ferret. Genuinely,
I've wanted to be encouraged by him.
Go watch him.
But when I get to the tournament,
I understand what you mean. It's like you're almost thinking that he is going to bounce back.
Sprouts of promise, and then
it just doesn't seem to happen, does it? That 1-2-1 on the ball that he always does. It's not quite there at the moment.
But I know he has had problems off the board, as has been well documented.
Yeah.
And earlier in the year, I thought as we entered major season, as you like, I thought and wanted him to kick on, but he's not done so yet. But could do it on the world stage.
Right. So round 1 exit at Minehead. There's plenty of players that had that. I won't worry about that at all. Let me just give you some more context in the last 3 months. He's won 26 of his last 34 Players' Championship matches, and he got to the Grand Prix quarterfinals where he went out to Luke Humphries. So I think that is very encouraging underlying form there. Maybe hasn't been... he reached the Players' Championship 30 final, last one of the season, lost to Josh Rock. He was fantastic that day. Really, really good. Combination finishing coming back, which I always think is a good guide of where Johnny Clayton's at. The 1-2-1s, all of those kind of finishes on the ball, doing the little point down the camera, bang. One of them. I just think at the prices, he's definitely one to have on side. And this is a good time for me to flag. Betfair have put up some really good markets. Fair play to them for this. Not just the quarter, but to reach round 4 as well. So which is to reach the step before the quarterfinals, i.e. win 3 games. Clayton is 9-2 to win 3 games. I think he's in a lovely little section there to win those 3 games. And take a look at those markets as well, because they are interesting, and there are some bets there, of which I'll put up a couple more later in the video.
And much of the reasoning for Matt making things like that for Clayton is that the likes of Gerwyn Price and Joe Cullen are fantastically out of form.
Bang out of form.
Yeah. With Gerwyn Price, I like what I'm hearing from Gerwyn Price now. He seems he had a break from darts because he didn't qualify for the Grand Slam. And if you want to know what goes on in Geraint Price's head, you look at his Instagram stories. He loves posting on Instagram stories. Now, he's talked a lot about not liking the sport. He's talked a lot about not liking the travel and this, that, and the other. Recently, the past sort of 8 weeks, that narrative has changed. He wants to play darts again. He wants to win. He's been talking about how much he's not defending next year. He's committed to shooting up those rankings. So his head looks to be in the right place, which is a completely different to 12 months ago when he threatened to not even play in the World Championship. But that loss against Thibaut Tricot at the Players' Championship finals, his head's in the right place. It's just whether his game is at the moment. I don't think it is. And I think if you're out of form, I don't think this is the place where you really want to be. Probably could have done with another tournament before the World Championship. I'm going to talk about Vessel Nyman again because I have got him at 33-1. I completely agree with what Matt said. Really, that probably is a little bit, maybe a little
That's
bit
the
too
lowest
short
you'd want to
now.
back him, wouldn't you? You wouldn't want to back him.
is.
Anyone who doesn't shop around, he's 20-something in some places. Like, no,
The reason why I've still gone with him at 33-1 because if he could sit down and cherry pick his draw, this is probably the draw that he would have. He's got the South African Cameron Carolissen,
who painfully beat Peter Waituri in the African qualifier final. I was devastated with that.
It was good entertaining.
I was cracking that.
Tell you what, Africa need World Series events.
Yep. Waituri should be here, but I won't dwell on that.
And then after that, if he comes through that, he's got Joe Cullen, who, like you said, fantastically out of form. Joe Cullen, he himself spoke about this at the World Grand Prix and said something that we'd have to bleep out if I repeated it. So he knows that. I mean, he's someone who can play well.
I just don't think his action holds up to it,
I totally agree because I think with his action,
Cullen, yeah, I don't think his action holds up for prolonged games.
If his action is off,
he's had some
good
long games though.
He has, but like if his action is off, he's low. And Vessel Nyman is someone who could just railroad him. And then after that, he could have Geraint Price, who, like we've said,
Connor, I totally see it. You don't have to convince me. I think I'm maybe being a little bit cautious because I'm on him and I just don't want to get carried away. But when I saw the draw come out, I can't lie to you. I was rubbing my hands. I thought that's fantastic.
We'll say one more thing as well on this. I think out of all the quarters, I don't really like any of the unseeded players in this. I think it's the weakest quarter for the non-seeded players. This when you consider that this is probably the most open quarter.
Yeah,
I would, like you said, all those at the top of the markets for winning this quarter. I would pretty much say that those guys are the ones that you're going to expect to go through to the latter stages. I don't see any big shocks.
Well, as Matt will attest to, 2.5 years ago, I said that Geraint Price will never win another PDC major, and I'm still going. He made a final since then.
I said the same thing after the Grand Slam, to be fair. That went well.
Yeah.
I just got 2 match bets in this one for anyone who's interested before we go on to quarter four. Stephen Burton, I'm going to back him on the handicap against Alexander Merckx, -1.5 sets, so to win 3-0 or 3-1 effectively. That's 6-5. I think Bertie's an underrated performer on the tour. He's been knocking around the tour for a long time now. Very steady hand. One of those that can beat anybody on the floor, and he has done this year. Made a Players' Championship semi-final. This is only his second appearance at the World Championship, and he's had a little bit of time between drinks, so I'm sure he's looking forward to it. But he did beat James Wade at the Players' Championship finals last month to continue what has been a really encouraging year. I think he's a progressive player. Alex Merckx is a Challenge Tour player. He's been quite impressive, but he's still in that sort of mid-80s average range most of the time. I think the extra PDC experience for Burton will be key in this game. It's probably one of the less attractive games for the neutral in the first round, but I think there's a good bet there at 6-5 on Burton -1.5 sets. The only other one for me in this section is Tomoya Goto. We talk about the Asian players being underrated. I think this lad's been criminally underrated in this market. A little bit because of Mickey Mansell, who's in fantastic form. Credit to Mickey. But yeah, last year, I don't like doing trumpet blowing really. I prefer talking about my losers, but Goto was my nap of the first round last year against Ian White, and he polished him off 4-1. He beat him 3-1, 98 average.
Polished him off?
Yeah, well, bleep that out if you want. 7 180s in the 4 sets there, though, from Goto. And then he lost to Ryan Serling round 2, 3-1, still 4 180s again.
No shame in that, is there?
Prolific 180 hitter. As I say, I understand the market likes Mansell, but Goto is 10-3 to win this game. That tempts me. However, I think the easier way to play it, go to over 3 180s, which he did in both of his games last year, and he's now got that Ali Pali experience behind him. 6-4. Too big for me. Should be about evens.
Like it. On to quarter four then. This is where we've got two of the old guard, if you like. Gary Anderson and Michael Van Gerwen.
34-year-old Michael Van Gerwen, the old guard. Incredible that. We were saying that about Luke.
That'd be lit in 20 years, the old guard.
9-4 Anderson, 5-2 Van Gerwen. Bigger prices, the rest. Gary Anderson, Matt's been telling us all year about his form.
For the last 3 years, it feels
particularly on the floor. I will often text Matt. Whenever Anderson has a good game, whether it be on TV or not, I'll text Matt, "Are you on him for the Worlds?" And usually the answer is yes. So Matt's going to touch on that, I'm sure. But Van Gerwen looks to have had a nice draw early on.
Yeah, it's been priced like a 2-horse race, this one, hasn't it? 9-4 Anderson, 5-2 Van Gerwen, 9-1 or bigger. The rest, and like we touched on it at the start of the video, some of these big names that have been, the dark horses of the last decade, Dave Chisnell, Dimitri Vandenberg, both definitely fall into that category. Ross Smith, probably not, but you would have feasibly thought he would have been shorter in this market 12 months ago. He's not had the best.
I'm surprised. He's been 40-1, I think, to win. It's too short.
Yeah, he showed a little bit of, I suppose, encouragement at recent events, but not enough to make me want to get involved with Ross. Is it a 2-horse race between Van Gerwen and Anderson? I'm not so sure because
only one of them can be in the quarter.
Exactly. Well, as I say, but for this quarter, I should have said, I'm not so sure it is because, as I say, for all the good I can see in both, I can see chinks in the armour of both. You've already referenced it earlier, Connor. That performance against Brendan Dolan last year from Gary. I was on Gary at 80-1 last year. I was really, that felt like my best bet going into it. Then he just puts in the flattest performance ever against Brendan. Brendan didn't play that well.
Something happened in that. I don't know what, but something happened in that because Anderson, he left the stage, he took his darts. I think during that ad break, he had decided he wasn't coming back. For whatever reason, you wouldn't do that. And then there was a bit of a delay getting him back on stage. Something happened. It was strange. I don't know whether it was the pace. Brendan Dolan didn't play any slower than he normally does. No. Like you said, it was one of the strangest games that I've seen.
He lost his head, really.
Yeah, he did. And you'd have that nagging doubt, wouldn't you, backing him at 9-4 to win this quarter? Is he going to throw in another one of those sort of stinkers? I also think you have to question, and I don't like doing this, but stamina as well with Gary at this point of his career. Does he have he talks about, I can't be bothered with these long tournaments. He loves Pro Tours because he can turn up and in one day it's done and dusted.
He's playing on his birthday, by the way.
Well, that's it. He won't like that, will he? Because he likes to keep darts and.
Has he been practicing ahead of the Worlds?
Oh, I would think so. I don't know whether he'll tell you he has. But
I'm gonna save myself from his wrath and say no, he's not been practicing. If he says he's not been practicing,
just deny it.
He's not been practicing.
Connor has been in the eye of the
Anderson storm a few times. And MVG as well. I think Connor's going to make a good case for him. He already has kind of made a good case for him, saying that he's criminally underrated. His aura at Alexandra Palace, it definitely brings the best out of him. I totally see why people would want to be with him. But again, I just look at his recent form. I can't get there 5-2 to win the quarter. I'd rather back him outright at 12s because if it clicks, it really clicks, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's
the 5-2 on the quarter is too short. So again, this is another quarter where I'm looking down the page, and funny enough, we have landed on the exact two same names in this quarter.
Oh well, I didn't know that.
And that's not. I've just saw your selections and laughed because I thought they were mine. Martin Schindler is someone that I think is definitely worth a few shillings at 16-1.
Well, before we move on to the bottom section,
go on.
Let's Connor tell us why you with MVG. It's a big price.
Yes, well, I mean, there's two people I want to talk about. I'll talk about MVG first. I mean, I agree with you, Matt. I think he's too short to win the quarter, especially with him being in the same section as Anderson. But 12-1, was he? 12-1, was he?
12-1 outright,
12-1 with Fieri's places to win the tournament. We said at the top of this video, Michael Van Gerwen does not play badly at the World Championship. Even when he lost to Scott Williams, he didn't play awfully. It was like a 97 average or something like that. It wasn't terrible. He's lifted this 3 times already. He's somebody who has had, we've seen him beat Luke Littler in big TV matches. We've seen him beat Luke Humphries this year in big TV matches. He will not be phased at all with the World Championship stage. I don't even think he's going to be phased about his form, to be honest with you. I think in his mind, he's going to be thinking, people are going to be scared of me on that stage. He does have an aura. When you hear Seven Nations Army in the green lights, when you're waiting for Michael Van Gerwen to step on that stage with you, it's completely different. So to win the quarter, I'm going to stay away from. To win the World Championship, 12 to 1 for Michael Van Gerwen to win anything. You know, if he was
It is getting to that point, isn't it, where you're just looking at the price thinking, is that too
Yeah,
big?
he's drifting too much. If he's 12 to 1 to win the Snooker World Championship, I'm backing him. I really am. But I do
Not off what I saw off him on that paddy
Well,
course
yeah.
the other day.
No, fair enough.
Luke Humphries looks a good little player, doesn't he?
Oh, yes. That's amazing.
Going
isn't
right
it?
off piece
Yeah,
there, talking snooker.
I think the thing with Van Gerwen, I think we said similar last year. Yes, he is out of form.
I didn't know you last year.
But only in comparison to his peak that was 6-7 years ago.
He's held to
he's
a different standard.
He's still a very, very good player. And, you know, third in the world might well be about the correct ranking, really. Like you say, he's in the right half of the draw. He's on the right stage. He's got the right experience, etc.
And you know, Michael has only got these 3 world titles, and I think everyone would agree that's not enough reflective of what he was in that era.
He said that last year.
I think the fear and the sort of the weight of expectation and the pressure he put on himself, not pressure that people put on him, but the pressure he put on himself in that period to win more world titles. Yeah. That's what Littler's going to have. That is what Littler's going to have. It's like peak MVG when he turns up thinking, I've got to win the Worlds. I've had a great year, but if I don't win the Worlds, I've underachieved.
Yeah, it was that year.
And it is. That's what it was with MVG. When it used to see, he'd win 8 titles, 10 titles in the year. He'd come to the Worlds, and if he lost, he'd be heartbroken.
Well, and he would come to the Worlds in those years at 13 to 8, not 12 to 1.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
My hot take, by the way, I think Van Gerwen still gets to the 6 he wants. Because he's only 34. He could have another 16
years. He's got time.
Years.
He has got time, yeah.
And before, whereas I thought he might retire early, I think he will carry on now until he gets those 6.
Yeah, it's probably nice that the attention's been taken off him a bit, hasn't it? Now.
But just before we wrap up, I do want to talk about another person in this quarter, Dimitri Van den Berg. Now, he's 12 to 1 to win this quarter with Coral, but I can't believe he's 100 to 1 to win this tournament, Dimitri Van den Berg. Now, I just want to talk about why I think that is far, far too high.
Good record here.
Dimitri Van den Berg has had an awful year away from the TV cameras, and he's talked about this in depth. And I mean terrible. I mean, it's prime Connor Cain stuff. It really, really is not good. On the TV stage, though, he's won the UK Open. He beat Luke Humphries in the final, made the quarter-final of the match play.
Playing like an
But he won.
Right, yeah. But you see, that's gonna wind people up, and that makes
winds
him
me
hard
up
to speak.
A lot.
It made the final 4 of the World Grand Prix. Lost to Mike the Decker, and he was really ill. Actually, Dimitri Van den Berg told us after his quarterfinal win, "Keep this press conference short. I'm ill." He's telling us to keep a press conference short, so he must have been really, really bad. Dimitri Van den Berg, he struggles when he's playing multiple games in one day. When Dimmy can prepare for one game on one day, he is mustard because we see it on the stage. He's got his rituals. He's got a routine. When he can get everything perfect, he can play superb darts. On top of what I've just mentioned, he's also made the Final 4 of the World Cup and the Masters this year as well. On the TV, he has done really, really well. He's away from Michael Van Gerwen. He's away from Anderson. He can only play one of those at the very, very worst. He's got Martin Schindler, potentially. I know you guys have both backed Martin Schindler. Fantastic year, 2 titles. He's been poor recently. Let's have it right. He has been poor recently. And then he's likely to have either Dave Chisnall or Ross Smith. Dave Chisnall or Gabrielle Clemens. Gabrielle Clemens
Fell off.
No one's going to back Gabrielle Clemens. No. Dave Chisnall on TV, like I said before, it's prime Connor Cain stuff. It really, really is not good. So it's such a good section for him. With his TV form, 100 to 1, rubbish. Shouldn't be anywhere near 100 to 1. Really should not be anywhere near 100
Dimitri Van den Berg is one of the few people or horses or teams or competitors in the world that I have just a bias against, and it clouds my betting judgment, and I don't mind admitting that. I hate watching him.
It's good that you know it, though, isn't it?
Honestly,
that's the main thing.
I hate watching
him. But you hate watching him, and others hate playing him.
Yeah, so you have made a good case for him. The betting opportunity in this quarter is in the bottom half because, as we've said, MVG and Anderson are drawn in the top half. So naming the other quarter finalist, I think, is where the value should be found and can be found. Chisnall, sometimes amazing, but unreliable, particularly from a betting perspective. He's 11 to 1. Dimitri, we've touched on at 12 to 1. He might be painful to watch, but he can deliver on the big stage. That's absolutely no question. Clemens is bang out of form. Is the German Joe Cullen, basically. He's wildly out of form. 22 to 1. So that does lead me to Martin Schindler. who looks too big for me at 16-1. I mean, how 16-1 I think is a good price. I'd have him shorter than he is shorter than Clemens, but I'd have him as a similar price.
That market that I referenced earlier about Betfair to get to the quarterfinal rather than to win the quarter, he's 4-1 there, Schindler. I don't think he has to play anybody particularly fearsome to get that far. Yes, in the quarterfinals he maybe plays an MVG or an Ando, and he's a big outsider there. Yep. And the crowd would be, unless a lot of Germans come over, which they do. They will. Absolutely. But if it's a Gary Anderson, there'll be a pro Anderson crowd as well. It'll be a rowdy night.
Michael Van Gogh ain't going to care about a rowdy crowd.
Michael Van Gogh
ain't going to care about the booze at all. He'll bring
but I think the 4-1 is maybe even a better bet than that, actually. The 4-1 on him to get as far as the quarterfinal. Then you don't have to worry about MVG and Anderson. I don't fear anybody in that bottom part of that section, as you say. Make a case for a few, but plenty to oppose. And I don't want to steal your thunder here, but we've both landed on someone at 100-1 that we want to reference. So let's give him a mention. Neil Zonneveld. This is a bit of a stab. Anyone at 100-1 to win a quarter is a serious stab.
A lot of the time, Matt, I end up backing what you back because you're the leader when it comes to dots betting in my eyes. But yeah, we have actually, unbeknownst to each other, landed on the same two here, and Neil Zonneveld is that one. Quite simple, really. I think he's been in career best form recently. Still a young player, improving all the time, particularly on the Pro Tour. Couple of wins at the Players' Championship finals a couple of weeks ago. He's a player on the up. I've said that about other players. He can beat Robert Owens in round 1. He can beat Gabe Clemens in round 2, and then just hope for the best beyond that.
Well, you got a runner there, haven't you? That's my thinking as well. I think his first 2 games very winnable. I think he's in a good place, and he's a bit of an awkward player to play as well because his pace is on the slow
Deliberate,
side. He's a lefty. He's quite a deliberate player.
Pepper's the 180.
He does, yeah, and he's very erratic. So he's maybe not going to go and win the World Championship, but I could see him winning 2 or 3 games and giving you a runner at a massive price. The only other one I will mention, and I'm mentioning after the section here, but it's that kind of section in that bottom part of the section. Willie O'Connor always does well at the Worlds.
I love Big Willie.
He has not gone out of the World Championship in the first round in the last 6 years. Willie O'Connor. So he is an absolute master on that.
I'll tell you when Willie O'Connor will go out in the first round. If I back him this year, because he's one of those players that I never, ever, ever get right from a betting perspective.
But he's got Dylan Slevin in the first round, his countryman. I think experience might tell there in the Battle of the Irish. And then, again, he's got Dimitri in round 2. And Connor's made a good case for Dimitri. But if
Very good case.
Dimitri went out in round 2 last year. So if you are going to get him early, get him, talk about these C's just wanting to get through round 2. Willie O'Connor's a nightmare opponent in round 2 because he's just really solid, isn't he? He's like mid-90s, up towards 100. Yeah, I think that's a tough start for Dimitri, but I see the arguments, and I think what we can deduce from everything we've said here is this quarter, the bottom part of it is very open and a very attractive betting proposition.
And I think we've talked all throughout this video about the Asian players, and I know you've picked out one more, haven't you, in this quarter?
I have. This is my final match bet. My preference is to back him on the handicaps to win a set, as Connor did earlier, 5-6. This is Lock Yin Lee playing Chris Landman. Now, we talk about Man Lok Lung, or Hugo, as Connor said he likes to be called. He was fantastic when he beating Jan van Veen last year. Well, Lock Yin Lee is his Hong Kong World Cup teammate, and I like what I saw from him at the World Cup. Hong Kong made a good account of themselves this year as well.
They wasn't called Hong Kong though, was they?
You're thinking of Chinese Taipei and Taiwan.
Yeah.
Oh right, okay.
That's not for this video. That's
Yeah, click below to see about that. But no, don't really. Lock Yin Lee, like I say, he made a good account of himself at the World Cup. He's probably playing at a similar level to his mate Hugo back home, I would say. Yeah. He's done well on the Asia Tour this year to qualify. He's playing Chris Landman, who's a player I have a lot of time for, Chris Landman. I've backed him in big prices at Pro Tours. I've backed him to win the WDF World Championship when he got to the final, I think, and lost. So I do rate Landman, but he's played 2 games on the Ali Pali stage and he's averaged 88 and 83. That is nothing to be feared in my eyes. We talk about these Asian players hitting high 80s averages, stepping up to the challenge. He's got an annual average of 87, has Lee. So I think to have Landman 1-10 or something to win this match and Lock Yin Lee out at 6-1, that just looks a bit disrespectful to me. I'd have a little flutter on the 6-1, but 5-6 to win a set, I think is very, very generous.
Yeah, this is the quarter to bet in, I think, because unlike earlier when I was putting up the likes of Cross and Lukeman from a trading perspective, because of the presence of Littler, who could beat anyone, obviously, in this quarter, MVG and Anderson aren't as formidable as they used to be. So I'm actually backing these with hopes of Schindler actually winning the quarter. Tough games, obviously, for people to come through in all different angles. Right, well, at this stage then, we're going to go on to our best bets. My outright bets are Van Dijvenbode at 125 and Schindler at 150. You can actually get... Schindler was 300 on the exchange when I looked before. That's in the win-only market, but I back and win only anyway. You're only each way 2 places. I'd rather have my full stake on the win bet and then trade it out as and when they progress through the tournament. And my quarter bets do reflect my outright bets a bit. Big Dirk is 18-1 for that quarter. Rob Cross 10-1 from a trading angle, and then Schindler and Zonneveld, as mentioned, 16 and 100 respectively in quarter 4. Connor, where are your bets going? Your best bets?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've talked about sort of my quarter bets as I've gone through, so I'm not going to explain them too much. But Damon Hector to win quarter 1 at 20-1, I think is far too high. Rob Cross at 10-1, like I said, I just think he goes under the radar too much, and he's always undervalued because of that. Vessel Nyman at 6-1, it's a really open quarter. I think you can make a case for quite a lot of people there. Chris Dobie, Michael Smith, so maybe would stay away from that one a little bit more than the others. And Dimitri van den Berg, 12-1. Again, to be honest, I probably like him more on the outright there at 100-1 than I do for him to win the quarter. But talking of my outrights, I've gone with, like I've said, Dimitri van den Berg at 100-1. I'm not going to explain that again. I just think his TV form is far, far too good to be anywhere near that with his section. Vessel Nyman, 33-1. Again, you won't want to get him any shorter than that, but I just think with his draw, it's a really good draw. And Michael van Gerwen, 12-1 to win the PDC World Championship is incredible. And I think that we are going to hear as well from Eddie Hearn. We were speaking to Eddie about the World Championship, and even he gave a few words to Michael van Gerwen as well, because it's 12-1 to win his 4th World Championship. It's Michael van Gerwen, for goodness sake, come on.
We've got Connor Cain from Darts Now and the PDC chairman, Eddie Hearn, agreeing on Michael van Gerwen.
But don't rule out MVG. One of my old school favourites. I think he could have a good run, and he's in the opposite side of the draw. So Humphreys and Littler could meet each other in the semi-finals, where although Van Gerwen's got some tough games, he may have an easier path to the final.
Do you like it when it's a little bit, we love an underdog. I feel like I wouldn't imagine saying that Michael van Gerwen would be kind of the underdog.
Yeah, you're right though.
Now,
I think everyone's talking about the 2 Lukes.
Yeah.
And if Van Gerwen came on the blind side and won, that would be equally as epic.
I feel like it'd be like Gary Anderson just coming back, and just being
Rob
like,
Cross,
finally.
There's a lot of good players.
Rob Cross, what a guy.
Yeah.
So, Luke Little, are you going with, that's your prediction?
I'm probably, my heart is going with Luke Littler, my head is going with Luke Humphreys.
On to Matt then. What is you're the main man for the betting on this one. Connor does the press side, I do the hosting, you do the betting. Where's the best bets?
No pressure then. Yeah. So that's probably why I have felt the need to still mention one of the favourites. I think Luke Humphreys is a really, really solid bet to win this World Championship. If you're coming to have a serious bet on this World Championship, Luke Humphreys is the man. 18-5 with priced-up.bet or 7-2 on the exchange. Either of them will do. I would back him all the way down to 3-1, to be honest. I still think there's value there. Johnny Clayton, I mentioned him earlier in. That's the one that if I was having a flyer at the current prices, 100-1 about the Ferret. I think he's coming back to form. I think he has a very nice early few rounds to play himself into the tournament. Quarter bets, I completely agree with you two lads on Rob Cross, 10-1 being, just so big that you've got to back it kind of thing. Ryan Searle also give an honourable mention at double the price, 20-1. Quarter 3, I'm playing it double-handed again with Chris Dobie at 11-2 and Clayton, that man, at 9-1. And then my only quarter bet is in Section 4 is Martin Schindler, 16-1 with Sky Bet. And I've got 2 bets in the Betfair market that I referenced to reach round 4, i.e. to make the quarterfinals rather than win the quarter. Zonneveld and Willie O'Connor are both 18-1 to win 3 games. I think that section is just very, very open. So little goals on them would be the way to play. And I've gone through about 7 match bets as well in this tournament, which we'll put up on the screen rather than me having to go through them again. But if you want my match betting, I will be writing a daily blog throughout the World Championship on oddsnow.com, which will have all my match prices. I'm aiming to get them up the night before so you can get on a good time before the prices go.
So you want oddsnow.com for Matt's daily column throughout the World Championship. Connor will be at the World Championship every day. He'll probably be there on Christmas Day as well, getting all the best interviews and insights from Ali Pali. And I might be chipping in as well with a video or two for Odds Now. So thanks for watching. Let us know in the comments who you fancy to win the Darts World Championship this year. Make sure you're subscribing to Odds Now and Darts Now, and we'll be back soon.